Well, hello everyone. Alejandro Tornato here, coming directly from Beaufort, Georgia. And it is my pleasure, my delight to be connecting with all of you once again, whether it is live right now or whether you get the recording later. And today, I will love to share with you a lesson entitled Leaders Put the Emphasis on Intangibles. Leaders put the emphasis on intangibles. Now, what are intangibles? Well, let me explain. Most people that are in leadership positions, they certainly can manage tangible and measurable things. We have things that are tangible. What are tangible things? Well, money is a tangible thing because you can measure and you can manage money. Time is a tangible thing because you can manage it, you can measure it. Relationships are manageable, and you can measure the amount and the quantity of relationships that you have. Things that you can account, things that you can measure, all those belong to the tangible category. Now, they provide concrete evidence. Tangible things provide concrete evidence of things. Either you have time or you don't have time. Either you have money or you don't have money. You can logically evaluate them before making decisions. Okay, if you want to make, if you're about to make a decision to go on a vacation, well, you can evaluate whether you have enough money for that vacation or not. So before you embark on it, you can make a decision based on a concrete evidence. And that concrete evidence is the result of a tangible, measurable thing. Now, leadership, on the other hand, is really a game of intangibles. And of course, intangibles is the opposite of tangibles. Intangibles are things that you cannot manage, you cannot measure, you cannot get an exact and accurate measure of these intangibles. Now, what could be more intangible when it comes to leadership? What can be more intangible than influence? And as John Maxwell would say, what is leadership? Leadership is influence, nothing more and nothing less. So if leadership is influence, and influence is an intangible thing, then how do we measure and manage influence? Now, leaders deal with things like not just influence, but like morale, motivation, momentum, emotions, attitudes, atmosphere, and timing. So how do we measure those things? Can we measure those things? Can you measure those things? Is there a tool in a leader's toolkit box that is able to really get a grasp and a measure, an accurate measure of these intangibles? Let me repeat them for you. Influence, morale, motivation, momentum, emotions, attitudes, atmosphere, timing. How do you measure timing before you do something? How do you measure it? How do you know? And you can say, well, we're going to measure it, and next month it'll be the best timing that we have to do X and Y and Z. Can you do that? No, because timing is not tangible. How do you put your finger on momentum? I mean, how can you measure momentum? Well, I was thinking about this as I was preparing for this lesson. And when it comes to momentum, even though you cannot actually put a number and measure it accurately, but let's say, if last week or yesterday you were on the low side, you just were tired, worn out, and you didn't feel it. Doing much, and you were not yourself. So basically, you did not have momentum. But today, you woke up this morning and you just jumped out of bed with a renewed mind and thinking and mindset and attitude, a very positive, very upbeat, and very vibrant, full of energy, full of new ideas that you wanted to start implementing. And so that momentum carried you through the day. Now, what we can say is that, okay, yesterday, very low momentum. Hardly any momentum. Today, on the other hand, super high momentum. Very, very high. Very energetic momentum. Okay, you can see there's a gap. Now, can you measure that gap? Can you say, well, yesterday was a kind of a 2, and today is perhaps an 8 or a 9? But then yesterday it could have been maybe a 1 or a 3, or perhaps a 0, a flat 0, and today it could be a 9 or even a 10. The only way that you can measure it is you can say, well, yesterday there was hardly any momentum, but today I had plenty of momentum. So you can compare it that way, but you cannot put an accurate number. You cannot measure it as a tangible thing. As to say, well, yesterday I had $100 in my pocket, and today I only had 10. And that's a real fact. You can look in your pocket and you can say, well, I spent $90, so okay, yesterday was 100 and today 10. You can measure. That's a tangible thing. So you see the difference between tangibles and intangibles. And what leaders have to deal most of the time is with intangible elements, intangible things. Now, when we come to intangible things, it's all very intuitive. Now, to gauge such things, you have to read between the lines. And that's what leaders are good. Good leaders are good at reading in between the lines. Leaders have to become comfortable. More than comfortable. They have to become confident dealing with such things. Many times, the problems leaders face in organizations are not the real problems. For example, let's say a department is $100,000 over budget at the end of the quarter. Now, their problem is not a money problem. Even though you think, okay, they're $100 over budget, they have a money problem. No, the problem really is not a money problem. The deficit is only evidence of the problem. So the $100 over budget is a sign of what the real problem is. And the real problem could be that the morale of the sales force is extremely low, or the timing of a product launch was not exactly the right one, or the attitude of the department's leader is not the best and is not an attitude that is encouraging of the team members to really thrive and to excel and to do good work and to do excellent work. So those could be the problems, the real problems, and the manifestation of those problems is the result that the department is $100 over budget. You see what happens? Is not leaders don't have to deal with the tangible things, the money issues. They have to deal and be able to go in between the lines, dig deeper, and see what is the real problem that caused that tangible thing to manifest. And leaders, good leaders, they need to learn to focus on those things, on those intangible things. You see, the sign of an intangible problem is demonstrated by a tangible result. Let me say that again. The sign of an intangible problem is demonstrated and manifested by a tangible result. Leadership is not an exact science. Leadership involves people. Leadership, indeed, as Maxwell would say, is influence. Nothing more, nothing less. But exerting influence upon people is having influence with people, is influencing people for good. So leadership involves people. And people are complex. I know that you had to deal with people. We all have to deal with people, even right now under these crazy times, these pandemic times, these social distancing times, these mask wearing times. Even during these times, we have to deal with people, and people are complex human beings. We are complex. You know, in mathematics, I'm going to get a little bit into math. Just to give an illustration. I hope that you can follow me. I'm sure that you will. But in math, we have a set of numbers that are real numbers. What are the real numbers? Well, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Those are real numbers. But also in mathematics, there is a set of what is called complex numbers or imaginary numbers. And so in life, we have leadership, which is complex because leadership involves and deals with people. And people are complex. They are real. they're not imaginary. They're real. People are real. But at the same time, people not only are real, but they are complex. And so, as in math, that sometimes when we have to resolve problems, we have to resolve problems not only in the realm of real numbers, but in the set of complex numbers. So it is in leadership and with leaders that we need to solve problems, not only dealing with tangible things, but with intangible things. And that makes leadership a more exciting place to be, in a sense, and a more challenging and complex place, because we have to deal with the complexity of people. So, leaders put emphasis on intangibles. Leaders put the emphasis on intangibles. And let me just close this session tonight by sharing these last words of encouragement. I encourage you, if you are in a leadership position, focus on the intangibles. Focus on the intangibles. Remember some of those intangibles: influence, momentum, emotions, attitudes, timing. Read. If you're not good at, get good at reading between the lines and look for the underlying issues. Because sometimes the real problems, you see, it's like, and I'm just going to close and finish with this. If you go to the doctor because you have a headache, perhaps the problem that you have is not the headache, but what is causing the headache that is the real problem. The headache is a manifestation, a visible manifestation of something that is not visible. So the headache is the tangible. The invisible problem is the intangible, the thing. And a good doctor is not only going to provide something to help you with your headache, but is going to try to find the root cause of the problem. So by dealing with the root cause of the problem and solving that and getting rid of that and treating that, then what happens? That will result in the headache not just to disappear now, but it will disappear for the foreseeable future, because you dealt with the cause, the root cause. And that's what leaders need to do and must do. They need to deal with the root causes, with the intangibles. So, thank you so very much. I hope that this lesson added value to your life, to your journey. It certainly clarified a few things. For me, I hope that it did the same for you. And if you want to contact me directly, there is my website, alejandrojtornato.com, alejandrojtornato.com. You can also contact me via social media, my Facebook page, No Limits Living, and my Facebook group, Conversations with Influencers. I can also be reached on LinkedIn, and I encourage you to go and listen to my podcast, The Alejandro Tornato Show, The Alejandro Tornato Show, available on all podcast platforms, Google Podcast, Apple Podcast, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and a few others. Just search for it. And if the content resonates with you, I ask that you would share it on your own social media platform, and that you share it with people who you think that it would benefit, the content would benefit them and would inspire them to reach to a higher level in their personal development. Share it with family, friends, co-workers. And so, thank you so very much once again. It's always my pleasure to connect with all of you. And let me once again remind you to live every moment, to be resilient, and also to be kind, to be passionate, to be intentional. And remember, my friends, that we were not designed and created with any kind of limitations. So I encourage you to live your life to the fullest of your capability and your potential, and make every single day a limitless experience. Thank you so very much. Until the next time that we meet, have a great evening and be well.